right. Welcome back to the Exo18 Leadership Podcast. This is Kelly Sherpy here with our co-founders, Ed Ivy and Christy Ivy. Say hi, guys.
Hi
guys. We're super excited today. We're really excited. Our energy level is high.
Oh my gosh. You're not
upbeat.
supposed to tell everybody that.
Why?
This is internal.
I got reprimanded for my energy level on the last podcast, so I'm going to be energetic today. So
Okay, we're going to see what energetic Ed looks like
Ed.
today. Energy Ed. I like it. Is
Yeah.
Energy Ed, how does he relate to Cool Ed? Are they the same guy?
Oh.
yeah, no, they're definitely the same guy.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
But
it's
can one appear? Can they
Without the
appear
other?
at right?
Yeah.
I think they probably go hand in hand.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Okay, well, since we're talking about Cool Ed, I want to do the honors of introducing somebody that's here with us today.
Okay, do it.
Who I fondly call Brion.
Brion.
Yes.
Brion.
We have a guest.
Brion.
Yes, that's me.
Yes.
So, Kelly, introduce Brion.
I would be happy to introduce Brion. I can't say it nearly as eloquently as you can.
She's got a lot more practice.
She's got a lot of, that sounds like, a lot of practice there behind that one. Well, today we have a very special guest, all the way in from the great state of Oklahoma. One of our valued team members, Brian McNabb,
Hey,
is
everyone.
here with us today.
Yeah.
I'm going to totally butcher and won't even do you justice by trying to introduce you with all
all
of your
right.
accolades and experience.
Well, we have to let Ed interject for a second how he refers to Brion.
Oh,
Yeah, I refer to Brian, as the Russell Crowe ministry mind, the beautiful mind,
the beautiful mind.
for organization structure.
Yes.
Amazing.
Amazing. I
Amazing.
mean, and part of that came just from several years ago. We were working with a particular church, and I said, Brian, come on, go with me, and we're working with it. And so as we were working, one of the things that we were doing is helping them with their org chart, create a new org chart for their church. And so, we're talking and, I'm kind of philosophically and all the different areas and how it looks. And so we finally landed on what that really should be and what it should look like. It just needed to be kind of formatted and, executed and not executed,
Put in
but
writing.
Put in writing. And so we had a big whiteboard and I just held the marker up and I handed it to Brian and I'm like, Brian? And he took the marker and he's just like, it's like his mind. He was just like things, it was definitely a Russell Crowe beautiful mind moment. I'm like, that's what he does.
And there it is.
I may
That's
have
what he does.
too much of an affinity for whiteboards and markers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the
Amazing.
interesting thing is we have a beautiful window right there. We just need to hand you a
Yeah.
marker, and during this podcast, you might be just
Might
whittling
feel
away
inspired.
over there.
Yeah.
Have markers will travel. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I have never found a glass board I didn't like.
I love it. I love it. Well, Brian, share with our listeners a little bit of just your background and your experience. And
Yeah. I've been in ministry since the 1900s.
Wow,
Yeah.
many decades.
that's what the
Yeah.
kids refer to it.
Yeah,
now.
that's I'm trying to stay relevant.
The late 1900s.
The late 1900s. In '97, I started as a student pastor. I was in student ministry, young adult ministry, groups ministry for 25 or so years, but also served alongside some teams in an executive role. Currently, a pastor and oversee a campus, but also do all this stuff with you guys. So that's kind of the short version. But yeah, I've been doing this a long time and I love it.
You know what's so double-edged that we have found here, Brion, is that you want to share your experience, but then when you start sharing it, you were like, wow, I'm old.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first thing I thought was like, goodness gracious,
Oh
97.
my
That's a long, long
gosh.
time ago.
It's like your life flashes in front of you and you're
Right.
like, wow.
We like to now refer to it as our collective experience.
Yes.
Yes.
And not just our individual experience.
Well, I am heavy on the collective part because I'm adding a big number to that chunk. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've got a great topic today, and I know this is something that we have all felt very passionate about, having worked with churches and organizations. This seems to be something that we keep saying over and over and over again. I would like to say maybe it is the Achilles heel
Yes.
of success in an
That's a good way to say
organization,
that.
right? So we're talking about the importance of organizational communication.
Yeah.
Ed, tell me more.
Well, Kelly, you just mentioned it. I mean, you know, this is the primary pain point that we deal with.
Yeah.
When we're working with different leaders and orgs and stuff. This is the one thing we don't share it, we don't communicate it through process, through the content side of it, as that
Right.
all kind of comes out and we work through our strategic process. It has been the one thing that just continues to rise up. It doesn't matter if it's a small, medium, large size church. It can be mega church, multi-site. It can be, you know, smaller church. It's just been across the board that we've seen that. Just the really, for us, it's been the breakdown of it, and not even just the breakdown, but the lack of it. And so that's why we just felt like it'd be really important for us to, you know, have an episode where we talked about the importance of organizational communication.
Yeah.
You know, what is that? You know, what happens when it's not there, when it's, you know, I mean, yeah.
Right.
And just for clarity's sake, I would like to add that when we're referring to organizational communication, we're talking about verbal and nonverbal, written and, you know, verbal communication from the organization top down, and also side to side.
Yeah, you're basically everything communicates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
or isn't being communicated.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what's interesting to me is, and I know that, you know, I feel like organizations figure it out where they are and then they grow a little bit, and this is the first thing to tank, right? Is communication. But I guess I continue to be surprised, maybe a little surprised, maybe not. I think at the lack of intentionality in communication and a communication strategy, and just how many leaders are like, well, I told them once, and it kind of expect it to trickle down or expect it to get where it's supposed to go without, I think, maybe the forethought of the intentional communication and really embedding it in a culture.
Yeah.
So
Have you guys ever done this team building exercise before? I know I have. It was very insightful, where everybody's handed a piece of paper and you're instructed to close your eyes, and are given directions. Fold it this way, tear this edge. And then when everybody opens their eyes, everybody's paper looks different, right?
Yeah.
And really that's what we see across the board
Yeah.
in all the organizations that we work with, is that dissemination of communication that people are thinking, I said it this way, everybody should have caught it, but it's being interpreted differently
right.
by
every person in every department.
Yeah.
You know, I have such a funny story about this because one of my very close friends in ministry, and somebody that I worked for a number of years and just have to this day the utmost respect for. In pastoring, it was funny because I was sitting in a meeting with him one time, and he's talking and sharing, and this is one of the subjects that's coming up, is just the lack of communication. And he just got so frustrated at one point in the meeting. It was funny because we all started laughing. He's like, dang it, I said it one time already. You know what I mean? How many times do I have to say it? I've already said it once. You know? But it's that mentality.
Right.
And especially, I think, the stronger the leader sometimes, even, you know, a type A type personality,
Yeah.
well, I've already said it.
Right.
Like, why do I need to say that? I've already shared the vision.
Right.
I've already told you what our core values are. Didn't you write them down? Didn't you just,
Right.
you know, like, why isn't this happening? And that really is the frustration that we see among high level leaders.
Yeah.
I've already said it because they've already moved on to the next thing. They've communicated mission,
good point.
passion, and they've moved on to the next thing. And so that's where it becomes so critical that there is a communication strategy, which we really rarely see.
Yeah. That's already in place. That is absolutely right.
And I want to add, too, frustrated for the leader and also for everybody on staff, because I think everybody on staff wants to move the ball down the field. And
Okay, hold on. We need to pause, and we
Wait,
need to high five. Look at Christy with her
I'm
sports
like-
analogy.
Sports analogy.
Sports analogy.
I got so scared. I was like, what?
Okay,
No.
now, but the question is, which field are we on?
That is the question. If
We're
you
moving
listen
the
to
ball
our
down
other
the field.
episodes, are we on a road or are we on a
No. Are we on a soccer field? Are we on a football field?
Or are we just in a mall and we're moving the ball down the field of the mall, trying to check off our to-do list?
We're losing it.
We're losing it. Okay, back on track, Christy. Back on track. We just had to take a moment and celebrate.
Well, you asked me what field I was on, so I'm just saying.
We had to take a moment and celebrate.
Field
Christy,
of dreams right there.
Christy, Christy loves our sports analogies.
Not.
All right, back to we're moving the ball down the field.
Right. Every team wants to move the ball down the field. And every team does want clear communication, and they want actionable steps. And so I think there's what we find is all parties want the same thing, but there's just a gap.
There is, yeah. There's a gap in the way that communication is given and received and interpreted, and all the above.
and here's the thing: without a communication strategy system that's in place, departments, pick whatever. I mean, because we live in the church world, and in the NGO side of things. I mean, that's kind of our sweet spot. But it doesn't matter what it is or what organization. If that's lacking, what ends up happening is the departments themselves will create their own system.
It's true.
They'll solve their own problem.
They begin to create it apart from mission vision. And then that's where, it just becomes a debacle, especially if you have any type of growth or momentum. And, that's where there inevitably is going to be a collision in that.
Well, and even to that point, Ed, it's one of those things that people will create and solve their own problems because they're unclear, so they fill in the gap, right? Like we said, their gap, they'll fill it in themselves, and then they'll solve and learn ways to communicate, and then leader comes back in and it's not exactly like he wants. Leader comes back in and is like, why is this
that's not what
strategic drift?
Right.
Right? Why is this happening? Why are y'all way over there? And then you've got to reel them back in, and then the whole department is frustrated.
Right.
And so then it creates confusion, and confusion kills any kind of confidence.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to be hesitant the next time I try to take the initiative. I'm going to be hesitant, and now things fall behind, and it just organizationally slows you down.
Yeah. That's a great point. A great point, Brian.
Yes, Brian.
Great point. Let's see.
Well, I wanted to point out too that how is this really playing out in real life? And what we're seeing is, and I know I'm going to bring some things up, and some listeners are going to be like, "Ouch, ooh," but we all want to get better. So what we're seeing is how is that playing out? When you said, Brian, people are trying to solve their own problems. What it looks like when we step in is we've got a department on one platform, Planning Center. We've got another department on this platform. We've got operations on this platform. None of them are talking to each other, and it's creating unintentional silos. And communication isn't flowing freely, and everybody's not on the same page. Then then it plays out into double booking rooms and just frustration because things aren't being clearly. Everyone's not on the same page, and everybody's on a different platform, and then it's kind of duct taped together, really.
Yeah. We're just trying to make it work. Because we have a responsibility to move the ball down the field, and we have a timeline, and we have a deadline, and we have a goal, and we're all wanting the same thing.
Right.
But because we're not communicating the same, I look at it like this. I was telling a client that I was working with the other day, one of the people that I have the privilege of serving, I was saying there's a difference between a golf team and a football team, right? Sorry for sports analogies again, but a golf team, they're technically a team, and all of them, their effort matters. But it is a very different kind of team than a football team. A football team has to work together. A golf team is all about the individual accomplishing their thing.
Right.
And so we're trying to move from golf teams, right, that are individual scores that matter for the whole, to football teams that if you don't do your part and we don't communicate clearly, then we don't move the ball down the field.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we see that too in especially maybe churches that that are just getting off the ground.
Right.
They're in startup mode, which you do. You kind of bootstrap it. You duct tape things together. You're just trying to get launched and get off the ground. And then you get to a certain point where now you've got some momentum. Your staff has expanded. Your team has expanded. And now you actually need a strategy or you're going to sink.
And
right?
also in churches where great things are happening, and just as you mentioned, Kelly, but they're seeing exponential growth really quick.
Right. They're trying to keep up.
And what happens in that case is everybody is just trying to stay on top of things, and they're just quickly, without thought or without bringing it to a group, they're creating a platform to talk to their leaders, to talk to their volunteers, and then that's when things start getting siloed out.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like that's the other thing that we see consistently is silos, right? Within churches, ministries, organizations.
Right.
Is how do we unsilo the silos?
Learning institutions.
Yeah, exactly. How do we break those down?
Yeah, I'm thinking of churches that they're struggling now because they feel like they have plateaued. We're not growing anymore. We had a season where things were great and all that. And they're trying to figure out, because this is the interesting thing. Usually this doesn't come up until we walk through our strategic growth process. And then it's like an aha moment. But there's some simplicity in this as well. But I don't think churches even realize it until they've plateaued.
That's a good point. Tell me more about that.
I mean, you don't see the need for it as long as things are happening.
That's true.
And then you reach a point where like, okay, well, this campus isn't talking well with this campus, and there's conflict here among these people, and it's often just a breakdown in the communication, and how things are streamlined, and how cascading communication, how it's working side to side, up, down, and that's where they're trying to articulate, have this frustration, but at times that frustration is attached to people. It's attached to a ministry, a specific area. And I think that's just, I'm working with a great church right now. And there's some internal conflict among some of the personnel and leaders within this particular church. And for me, I step back and I look and I just say to myself, a lot of this could be fixed just with a solid communication strategy.
Yeah.
It at least not all of it. I mean, because there are people issues in all of it too. But I mean, some of the frustrations just have to do with the communication system. Everybody talking the same language.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I know in the past, we rolled out a streamlined communication process that, Brian, I know you were a part of, and we used a platform, and we were able to break it down into channels for different areas of departments or ministries, and we found it very effective. It was a great way and everybody said, hey, try to limit text. Don't text that to me. Slack it to me. We used Slack. And we were just really able to streamline communication.
Yeah.
And it was very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made life a lot easier.
Yeah, it was easy as long as everybody was doing it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's always that learning curve.
There is, and people want to just bail on it, right?
Yeah, because everybody's created their own systems for communication, and so to abandon that, we've been doing it this way for 3 years, and so now you're asking me to change that completely. That's why you have to have buy-in. You have to be able to communicate. Imagine. But communicate it,
About your
communicate it on a
communication.
team level. I mean, there's got to be training, implementation. There's got to be hey, on this particular day, man, this is the day of implementation. We're not using our old communication systems anymore. How you've been doing? We're gathering together on a team level, on a church level.
Burn the ships, baby.
Yeah, burn the ships. But that is a struggle. And Brian, we struggled with that a little bit.
We fought with it
because it's but this is the way I've done it, and this is the way it works in our department, and they'll come up with 20 reasons for why that's still more effective than what you're doing.
That darn worship team.
And here's the thing. The part of that that's frustrating is they might be right for their department.
For their department, yeah.
And so you've got to navigate that and have an overall team buy-in to say, even though this might be right for my department and my silo, for all of us to move forward, for all of us to
Right.
get better,
Great point.
we've got to be able to, I've got to make a little bit of an adjustment myself and be okay with being a part of the team process of that.
And I think that's just where buy-in is so important, because what I feel like is really important, even on the front end, is to get feedback from each one of
Oh,
those
that's
department
good.
heads as to why they've created the system that they have, how it's working for them, what are the different components that need to be addressed. So that way they feel heard, right? That they're addressed. The things that are important to the area that they're leading have been and are being incorporated into the process, the build out, the rollout, all of those things. And so there's greater buy-in. It doesn't feel like something that's being done to them, but something that they've at least been able to contribute to, right?
Kelly, that is a great plug for our next episode. And I just really want everybody to make sure that they not only listen to this episode, but our next episode on Crucial Conversations, because they're vital.
They really
So just
are.
a little plug there, a free commercial.
Little plug.
A little plug. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Well, I think one of the things that we also see when it comes to breakdown in communication, even just talking about rollout and how that looks, is we get high-level leaders that are casting vision and like the 30,000-foot view, right? Like they love and they don't mind ambiguity most times, right? But then when you get down to the executors, right, the people that actually have to implement and put into place the vision that has been cast, they need a very concrete plan. They want that broad net to be narrowed down, and they want to have executables. They want to have a very clear target for them to hit, so they know what success is, and that there's not that strategic drift or that organizational drift that we talked about when they go to implement. Because the last thing you want to do is to be plugging it away at a new thing and then realize you just spent 2 months of your life going in the wrong direction, doing the wrong thing.
I am so glad.